Welcome, everyone, back to the Umana Yana podcast. I'm your host, Josh Jaipal, and today we are joined by a very special guest, someone who I've had the pleasure of connecting with over social media. We have yet to meet in person. However, that does not remove the fact that this gentleman has made a tremendous impact on my life already. Now, I'm going to flip it on over to him so he can introduce himself, and then we're going to jump on into our conversation for today. So over to you, my bro.
Absolutely. My name is Darren Chetana, and like Josh just said, we have met online, but not by chance, by aligning ourselves and sharing things that actually matter to us, things that we've learned, especially in this personal development, professional development space. Some of my mentors that I've greatly learned from include Tony Robbins, Bashar, Bob Proctor, who is a Canadian, and some of these people have definitely influenced me to be on the path that I am today. And I'm lucky to be able to learn as a lifelong learner for some of these people, and just as yourself. And anything that comes across us that resonates with us has the opportunity to be a learning experience. So hopefully today, for all of us joining, that is what it's going to be like for anyone who partakes in this podcast.
Awesome, man. Thank you for that. And you threw out a couple of names there that I myself have been personally influenced by as well. The big one there is Tony Robbins for me. Now, for you, I'm super curious. What has been like some of the impact that Tony Robbins and his teachings and guidance? What's that done for you in your world and how you show up in it?
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to anything personal development, maybe the first name that is at the top of the list by far is the big guy, Tony Robbins himself.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's by chance, by pure intensity and energy, as well as the longevity that this guy has been doing what he does. Have you ever been to a Tony Robbins live event?
I have not personally, but there have been a few in the last few years that they've done like over, I think, about a course of 3 or 4 days on YouTube that I've tuned in for that. That's the closest I've gotten so far.
Yeah, I have done that online event too as well. I've done a date with Destiny online, but not after years of saying I have to see this man in person.
Yeah.
And I did get the chance in 2019 to go to Miami, where he is based out of, and attend UPW Unleash the Power Within live event a few years ago. And even now, just thinking about that event, the 4 days, it's recharging my nervous system just thinking about what that event was like.
Mhm.
And everybody raves about his live events. It's not like any concert, any personal development experience I've ever been to. But that's not after consuming online material, audiobooks, watching videos of the guy online. It is truly a transforming experience, and
Yeah.
it is geared to bringing out those deeper parts within you to the surface with pure energy. And yeah, doing things during those events, it's almost like a 13, 14 hour experience, and you go and sleep for like a little bit, you eat like a little bit, and you're just back at it, and it's jam packed. It's
Yeah.
not a seminar. If there's anything to call it, it's not a seminar. It's like a
Yeah.
seminar multiplied by 10 on steroids mixed with music and dancing, and it's pretty much out of this world. But I would highly recommend it to anybody that knows Tony Robbins or even has the slightest inclination to gear towards his events. It is transformative, and the tools are long lasting, and it is quite the experience. And that's just giving a little bit of insight to it. But
Yeah.
no, his experiences, his teachings of bringing vitality to the surface, cleaning our body so that we have a clear thinking mind, getting into the depths of our subconscious mind, using music as a tool
Mhm.
to change our state. And he's big on state changes.
Yeah.
If we want to feel better, we can think all day sitting in a chair that might get us there, or we can get up and do some jumping jacks. And
There you go.
moving the blood in our body automatically makes us think better thoughts. And when the blood's flowing, when our brain's pumping, it gets us going, and then we're in a better place to maybe go through a challenge or go through a problem or face something that we might feel nervous about. So his state changes, his emphasis on that has been really transformative. And you can pull up any clip on YouTube for Tony Robbins, type it in relationships, health, professional career advice, and he's going to have concrete examples of what he's done and things that are very practical to use. So I absolutely love Tony Robbins, and if I get to the chance to go to another Tony Robbins event, I'm going to be on it like that. It'll get you out of your comfort zone. It'll bring sides of you that you've never knew were there.
Amazing. No, I appreciate that, man. And like some of the things that you shared there are things that, to me, just as someone who's seen him through a screen so far, like I absolutely feel that energy too. I really love that, he really empowers, like I feel like he just empowers me. He reminds me, like, you can change how you feel and how you do things. You're not stuck, right? And like whether that is the way he claps his hands, right? Or just the way that he's okay with that long stare that might feel uncomfortable, right? Or even that silence. Like he knows how to use every element of communication, whether that's the silence or actually the word structure, whatever it happens to be. I love how he can do that. And I love how he really, it's like before he even got going, he really understood, how am I going to impact the most number of people? I need to be able to speak their language, right? So I love the fact that, yeah, you can pick up a book and it's all about how do you really conquer and champion your body. Then you have the other ones about, like, say, money mastery, right?
Yeah.
So no matter who you are, what angle and lens you may first encounter him with, it's all something that sort of feeds in. And then if you really buy all the way in, you kind of get that holistic empowerment and support to, better yourself in all ways, shapes, and forms. So yeah, he's really a master of that. And, he's definitely influenced the approach of so many, including myself. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And his speak, it is catered to everyone. So it's not like niche, and it's not specific for a demographic of people. It's like applicable to all human beings, which I
Yeah.
find is a great place to start. And I think that's why he is where he is, and he reaches the amount of people enough to fill like an NBA game for four
Yeah.
days in a row. Like, the guy can do that, and yeah, his worldwide reach and his humanitarian efforts are they don't even need to be talked about. It's just he has impacted the world on an amazing level, and I'm appreciate the just to even be a part of it and take even a little piece of that and apply it myself.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for our guests who are wondering what's brought us together for this conversation today, Darren, I really appreciate the way you show up, man, and I've really noticed an evolution in your content, if you will. Like you're always, I see you're really trying to show your human side and how you practically apply things in everyday life so that others can possibly be inspired and take some of those tools to use for themselves. And lately, you've really resonated with things that are on my heart when it comes to things like the power of our words and our thoughts and how those can really impact our reality. And something you shared on a recent reel, I think it was just the other day, and I wrote it down. It's that impactful. So I wanna read it, the quote, and then we can take that and run with it. But something that you said was that building words and sentences is the highest form of architecture in our civilization. And when I sat with that, I'm like, okay, hit pause. I can't even continue with more information right now. I need to sit with that because that is so profound. Now I want to know from you, like, where did you draw that from, and what does that make you think as you hear that and share that even? What did that do for you?
Yeah, yeah. Our imagination, our mind is something that's always running and it's happening. And what consists of that, right? What does it consist of? Do we ever take a step back to say, zoom out maybe? Like if we're in traffic or if we're going through our day. I know we just talked about previously before we went live, is like it's hard to be present because so many things are happening and we're just kind of navigating through it. But we can actually zoom out from that and observe our thoughts and observe the race that's going on in our mind and say, oh, look, my mind's racing about work deadlines or having to be here at 3 p.m., at 4 p.m. And then look, my mind is also thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, and am I prepared for that tomorrow? The fact that we have the awareness to zoom out and hear these thoughts and these sentences and this dialogue that's continuously going on um, gives us the awareness of what's happening. Instead of actually being in the game, we can actually hold that maybe PlayStation controller. We're that person. We're not the avatar in the game, but we're the person behind that. And then we can understand that, okay, what are the words happening? Are they out of frustration? Are they out of nervousness? Are they out of judgmental kinds of words? And to consciously program in new words is the real key to shaping our experience. Because, as you know, all the things that we do, they could be called problems, they could be called obstacles, they could be called frustrations, but at the same time, they could also be called opportunities, and they can also be called referred to as learning experiences and chances for growth. And these words will shape how that experience goes when we label it a certain way. So I think the first step is to become aware of what we're building within our mind, within our experience. If we're having a lot of stress, are we labeling it as stress or are we labeling it as growth? Right? We're going to have two different outcomes in our body depending on how we label it. And another part is to have the right words and to refer back to a lot of these mentors. Tony Robbins uses a word called vitality. And how often do you hear people use the word vitality in their vocabulary? It's when they talk about health or how we're feeling. Usually our attention goes to the pain. Oh, I woke up today and my back is probably aching, or I have a headache. But we can ask ourselves, what's our vitality level? And when we put our attention and focus on vitality or a surplus of energy or vigor, that's what we get more of. We put our attention there, we can energy will go into that direction of vitality, of vigor, of force, and that's what we get more of. We get more, okay, my vitality's maybe at a 6 today. Okay, maybe I'll do some exercise. Then I pay attention to my vitality, and we get more of it because we pay attention to it. So instead of certain problems or you know, hard experiences that we want to go through, we can build different castles. We can build in different places. We can build things that we actually enjoy instead of maybe the repetitive or the mundane or what we hear from other people that become commonplace in language. No, we can incorporate new words to build the life experiences that we want to build just by changing our language and being conscious of the words that we're using and how they actually make us feel.
That's a great point, man. And I'm curious. I'll share sort of how I go about this, but I'm curious how you go about this. I do notice that for the most part, if we just generalize, for example, I do notice that men, when it comes to tapping into that communication around what we're feeling and experiencing, oftentimes we're limited in that vocabulary, and I think we'll explore that a little bit later on, a little bit more. But, even for myself, as someone who's, written books and loves words and reading and all that kind of stuff, and I feel like I have a little bit of an expanded vocabulary more than, say, the average bear. I still notice that I was still victim to my own thought patterns and not being able to break out of that. And something that I only started doing within the last few years is when I find myself like trapped sort of in this state of like I'm just kind of going around and around in my mind. I don't know how it came to me, but I started to actually say those things out loud. And I
Ooh,
found that that was the only thing that helped me to be like, Josh, that was so stupid.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You really let yourself spin for like 5 or 10 years thinking that? And it's like it took me literally taking it from feeling inside to getting it out of my body in the form of a word to like connect with that and release it. And it's like within a minute, it's like, oh my goodness, I let that go. That's not real. That's not a very realistic concern or obsession or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then I can get out of my own way. But that, like I said, that was only by fluke. I really, no one advised me to do that. It just was by fluke one day. And I'm like, wow, I found a lot of healing in that. So, I'm curious, how does that land for you, man? And what do you do to release the power of maybe some outdated vocabulary and sort of, make space for new stuff?
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that you shared that because I think all of us, if we actually said the things that are going in our mind out loud, even just to ourselves, we'd be surprised at how it sounds like when it's coming out verbally. Like, oh, people are concerned about the way my hair looks, or oh my gosh, am I doing this thing in the right way? The people are criticizing me for, oh my gosh, people are looking at the way I walk, or oh my god, like if we actually verbalize those things, we'd be almost embarrassed to actually what we're actually going through our mind and then actually think about that nobody actually cares about us and nobody's concerned at the way that my eyebrows look or that maybe I messed up my facial hair or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, to take a pause and to have the awareness to step back and realize that we're on a train, we're on a spiral, just like a toilet bowl. We're just going around, 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 and we're going in a direction. I
Mm.
find taking a deep breath one of the most easiest grounding practices that we all have access to. So taking a deep breath and just observing and observing because the mind is running. We are a spectator. We can say, oh, this is going on in our mind, just like how you said, oh, let me take a moment to verbalize this. That is a key awareness
Mhm.
to gaining your power, to understanding that those are not your thoughts. They're just thoughts that are happening. Yes, it's almost a monologue because nobody else is there.
Yeah.
It's coming back to ourselves. It's just a monologue, right? It's not dialogue with anybody else.
Yeah.
So that there's this script running, and okay, is this script actually taking me anywhere where I want to go? Even if it is real, and even if it is an actual problem, is this taking me in a direction that I want to go in? Or is this taking me down a dark tunnel that doesn't really have a positive end? So, a simple grounding practice that I use is just taking a deep breath, creating some space in there, because our mind can
Mm.
get really like jumped up and dense and
Yeah.
hard. So I find a deep breath will bring in air, and then I try to embody the air in my mind to say that, oh, there's a bunch of free space in here. I can clear up some room. Like, when you go in your room or a part of your house that you don't go often, you clear it up, it actually feels a lot fresher and it feels easier to be in and to settle into. So that metaphor, I use that in my mind to bring in air into my mind. Maybe you could tell I'm probably an air sign, but I resonate well with air. And
Yeah.
that space allows me to take some time to say, okay, I can choose another thought pattern. I can think about this situation differently, or I can think about ice cream and chocolate or something totally different that will change my mood. It doesn't have to be about that pertaining topic. I can choose anything under the sun because, again, this is our mind, this is our imagination. We can take it and put it onto anything. If I like cars, if I like sports, if I have love for somebody or something, I might as well put my attention on that object. And that's how an easy way to redirect those thoughts. They don't have to be sorted. We don't actually have to get to the bottom of that pile of negative thoughts. We can change the page or
Mhm.
change the book, the whole book
There you go.
itself.
Love that. I
Yeah.
love that, man. No, I think that's amazing. And you mentioned the breath, like a deep breath being something that really helps you in these types of moments, right? And I want to ask you about that. And reason being is I find that breath is obviously an amazing tool, right? I realize for most of my life, I actually have held my breath quite literally for very long periods of time. And, in unpacking that, you have the reasons that are kind of underlying and whatnot. But, where I want to go with this is I find that sometimes, as there are different levels and variations of things, sometimes when the mention of the power of our breath comes up, right? I do find that sometimes because we can go down a rabbit hole of all the different ways that you can breathe and the styles and all of these things that it might in itself become overwhelming and something that we need to take a breath over. So, I'm curious from you, how have you seen that, and how do you maybe talk people down from that and sort of simplify the starting point when it comes to tapping into our breath as a tool to really support us in just about every scenario?
Yeah, no, the fact that you realize that you do hold your breath is a big thing because we all do. Um, and it's like a tense feeling. It's a it's a response to freezing and holding the breath and just being tight. And the fact is that first awareness and then to just let it go. And that relaxes like every single part of our body. Um, and just to be aware of that, to be aware of the breath is a key. It's something that's always going. When I find the things to be grateful of, oh, I just slept for like 7 hours. I never thought about breathing, but here I was breathing and my lungs were operating this whole time, which allowed me to wake up. So I am grateful for that. The breath is an amazing thing that's always happening in the background, literally keeping us alive 365 days a year. For how many ever decades we've been on this planet, how much have we ever paid attention to it? And it's the thing that's bringing oxygen into our body, and it's giving ourselves vitality to sustain this whole orchestra, this whole mechanism. And to tap into the breath is like a vital um, it's like a cue for calmness. It can be a cue, it can ramp us up too at the same time, but it can also relax that tension that we have, to take a deep breath, um, to adjust our body, to give oxygen to our brain. And instead of freezing, we can let it out. Let it out through our abdomen and cycle in some new air. I think, yeah, the thing is, there's so many breathwork types to increase oxygen, to decrease oxygen, to starve the brain of oxygen so that when we take a deep breath again, it charges up our brain. There's different methods. But I think an easy one, because it's always happening in any given situation that we have, we are always breathing, so we can always tap into that, right? Not necessarily like exercise. We might need some space. We might be in a meeting. We might be, somewhere tight where exercise might not be the best thing. But the breath is something that we always can tap into, and just to maybe observe it. We can observe it. We can do a long exhale. We can start breathing through the nose, which is a calming effect, rather if we're a mouth breather. And just to tap into that and just feel relaxed when we let go of that breath, I find it hugely. And to maybe even think about it, another step of awareness is to embody more air. Like I referred to in my mind, it can go anywhere. Oxygen is flowing throughout our body, so we can embody more air, which is all around us, which is spacious, which is easy. And if we embody it maybe in our shoulder, it can release some of the tension, because we know that there's air in there and we can embody it and create some space in there. If there is tension, which is a buildup, a hardening of a part of our body, we can release it with some air and thinking about it. And it's all over, it's everywhere. We can take a nice deep breath of air and
Yeah.
enjoy it, and enjoy our blood oxygen levels, which provides a little bit of a calming benefit.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, man. And I think that more of us, if it's just another one of those reminders that probably more than we give ourselves credit for, we have what we need within us, right? It's just that awareness of tap back into the breath. You're doing it already, right? But more just that connection between what we're doing maybe subconsciously and whatnot. So I appreciate that, man. And I think that a common thread that's really running through our conversation, and even the things that have led up to this conversation, is us understanding the power of words. Like, we have seen it for ourselves, how they have the power to really help us to create some amazing things, right? And we've also seen, of course, on the flip side, from personal examples and looking at global events as another way, to see the destruction that words can create. Now, one thing I want to ask you about is that I've noticed, we're great at like, say I come and, hey, Darren, man, I want to give you this compliment, these 5 compliments. But sometimes when it's thinking about, what compliment can I issue to myself? There's almost this sense of guilt, or we kind of return to this, these thought patterns and feedback loops that in my studies and whatnot, I've seen it related back to caveman times, right? Where we sometimes focus on the negative things because understanding those negative experiences is what will keep us alive, right? So I want to understand from you, my perspective is that more often than not, we lean into a little bit more of that destructive ability of words when it comes to the self-talk that happens,
Mhm.
right? And I'm curious about you and whether you've seen that yourself, maybe experienced it personally, and why you think that is that we might lean more into that versus maybe the more constructive self-talk that we can so easily or maybe seemingly more easily issue to other people.
Oh yeah, you mean the constant critic,
Yeah.
the critic in the background who could pinpoint every single one of our flaws, or take us back in time to sixth grade where we did something super embarrassing,
Yep.
and we still think about that today. Apparently, for some reason, like why is that even? Why? How's that even relevant? That was in like
Right.
elementary school. Why do I remember something like that? Right? Or like something that happened on the street, and oh, like I was walking and I had something on my face, and all of a sudden, that's like the main focus of how embarrassed, how many people saw me like this. Oh my gosh. Meanwhile, nobody cares. Nobody even remembers what happened in sixth grade. But it's that feeling. It seems like it's that feeling that happens when we're probably embarrassed, or we kind of feel some sort of sense of shame, because if someone comes up to you and they say, "Oh my gosh," they give you a critique. Maybe it might have been from a teacher in school or some sort of mentor in our childhood. It kind of hits. It kind of hits kind of deep, and it's
Mm.
we may take it personal, and it's like, "Oh, is there something wrong with me?" And it's like, oh, so if there's something wrong with me and this person saw it, maybe I should be on guard for that in the future so that something like this never happens again. So if
Right.
somebody doesn't pick apart something of my personality or the way that I am or the way that I'm dressed, so let me not be different. Let me find the correct way of how to speak or the correct way of how to dress, so that I don't stand out and nobody points at me and says, you're doing something wrong. Look at you. You got a yellow shirt on. Who wears that? What's wrong with you, right? We all wear black. We're all cool in our black jackets, right? And you got
Yeah.
a yellow, right? But I think it hurts our personality and our self-image. And I think, we try to be on guard for these things so that it doesn't happen again, so that that critic doesn't come from the outside. So we start it first. I'm going to be
Yeah.
my own first critic first, so that I can prepare myself, I can put myself together in a nice way so that I'm presentable, and I
Yeah.
and I can gel well in this world. And something that I like to think of is, you talked about self-talk and what's going on in our mind. Um, and what it's like with a child, right? When we think of a child can't do anything on their own. They are born into this world, they have no bearings. They would absolutely lie there, and they wouldn't make it without
Mhm.
support. And a big part of that support is the how we treat that baby or that child. So what I like to think of is to go and think of ourselves as that child, and how do we speak to a child, right? When we speak to a child, it is 100,000% words of encouragement. It's like, oh,
Mm.
yes, you can do it, my child. Oh, you're doing well. Oh my gosh, look how big you've gotten. Oh, look, you made a mess, but that's okay because you'll try again. And when that baby starts to walk, when look what, oh, you fell on your face. Oh, don't worry about it. We don't say, oh, you fell. Oh my gosh, you don't know how to walk. You might as well just give up. Like you just
Yeah.
fell the first time trying to walk. This is not for you. This is
Right.
not. You're not
It's
cut
not
out
for
for
you.
these things, right? But we do that to ourselves. Where we make a mistake, we make a mistake. We do that to ourselves. Oh, I'm not cut out for this. This is not it. But to go back to the language, of how we talk to a child, of a baby, with that delicacy and having that intention that this is a child, a delicate, subconscious being who doesn't
Mm.
really have their bearings. First is to talk to ourselves like that. and to say, okay, okay, my child, go on. You're going to go try something new. It's going to be different. You're going to stumble, but hey, go ahead and do your best. That's
Yeah.
all it is. Go ahead, my child. And I do believe that in some way, shape, or form, that is the language of the universe. And the universe is not condemning, or God, or any overarching energy is not condemning. It is not harsh. It is not vile, and is not critical. It says,
Mm,
go ahead. You're gonna try. You're gonna try to do YouTube videos. Okay, go ahead. You're not gonna be great at it, but that's okay on your first try. But at
yeah.
least you tried, and this is something that you want to do, and you see appealing to you. Go ahead. And when we make a mistake for the 60,000th time, what is the language that's going to be? Oh, you made a mistake for the 60,000th time. Oh, that's okay. Try again. You might learn it the 60,001 time, and then we'll make 10,000 more mistakes. And what is the guidance? It's go ahead. The same way we'd speak to a child, I believe that is the same overarching energy that
Mm,
is needed for us even when we're older, because that child would not grow up to be big and strong if they didn't have that kind of motherly language, that support. We certainly wouldn't be here
yeah.
if we didn't have that language. And you probably heard of if you've heard of people speaking to plants when they speak
Yeah.
positively or negatively, right? That's a popular one that's out there on the internet to show the power of words and the energy. And when you speak nicely to plants, even a plant will have a drastic difference compared to the one beside it if we say negative words to it. And I think that that is the same thing with a child. I don't think anybody wants to carry out the experiment with a living being or a child, but I do think that that's a big part of our development as children up to the age of 5, 6, 7, whenever the ego starts to come in.
Yeah.
That those kind, soft words. Oh, look how big you're getting. Oh, you put on your clothes nice. Simple things like that is essential for our own self-talk. Yes, we may act like big adults. We may act like we these professional people, but down at heart, I think there is that delicate child, that subtle, sensitive person who needs that kind of self-talk. And the first place that it should come from is if we revert ourselves back to that and have that in mind, as if we're talking to ourselves like a child. I think that's one of the biggest guiding factors that's worked for me, to be delicate with myself, and only then maybe I can share that with someone else who is also a grown-up child.
Yeah. I appreciate that, man. That's really powerful, and I resonate with that. And you said some really amazing things in there that I hope can really help our audience to connect maybe some of the dots that they haven't yet within their own mind, and the way that the words can really impact that. And something that came up for me as you were sharing, like sometimes we almost take it upon ourselves to be critical before anyone else can be critical of us, right? And when that theme comes up, I often think back to the movie 8 Mile with Eminem, right? And how
Ooh.
his approach on stage was like, I'm going to take my power back by telling you everything you're going to tell me about me, right? Then you have nothing, right? What are you going to tell me about me? Right. And I think how you build on that is you actually think, okay, yeah, I can say the critical things, but now let's transform that into something positive. Let's not let that be sort of the end state of it, right? And I find that that is something that is so important, right? Because when we think about, especially as we get older, I find that this sort of enters conversations a lot more organically, if you will, where the idea of like, we need to teach people how to treat us, right? And so when using that principle, that's helped me to actually break out of a lot of the hypercritical things and thought patterns that I would actually just sort of dump on myself, right? Because it's like, I'm talking so nice to everybody else, but if they
Mhm.
see me just absolutely brutalizing myself every day, no matter how great I did something, sure, I mess up, but if that's all I'm focusing on, what are they going to think? They're not going to necessarily see, oh, Josh has that form of self-love and self-respect. So why on earth are they going to hold themselves to any type of standard, because they haven't even seen me replicate that and apply it for myself, right? And the moment I tapped into that, and I'm like, this makes sense, because I'm finding myself in this loop of unsatisfying relationships where I don't feel seen and heard and appreciated. when I made that shift, it's like, well, just like everything else, it has to start with me, right? Because then I know, even from myself, I can say, I'm not going to tolerate that from you, Josh. Not acceptable. Try again.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Being seen, well, who's going to see yourself better than yourself? And put recognition where you want it. And like that 8 Mile scene is one to bring it up, but to own it as well. Look, this is where I come from. This is my lifestyle. This is where I've been, but I'm still here. And look at that. So I think the ownership of it is a big, or acceptance. It can be referred to as is to accept. Yeah, look at me. Yeah, okay, yeah, look, I got thinning hair. I'm accepting of it, and this is who I am. I don't need to hide it, because what happens when we hide that part of us, we may actually make it more obvious. We make it,
Mm,
we're so focused on that part to be hidden that let's say there's something on my hand. Everything that I do is hiding and guarding that thing.
right.
Then people are gonna say, "What's behind that shield? Oh, you're hiding something there." That's what brings attention to
Mhm.
it, and that's what makes it bigger and more
Yeah.
of an issue. But to accept it, to give ourselves that permission to say, "Okay, this is me. I'm going to give myself my attention where I need it," and it does reflect back out into our world. I like you brought that point. Yeah, the 8 Mile scene. Yeah, it's definitely what it's like. Okay, oh yeah, you said it all. You owned up to it. Now what? Okay, I have nowhere else to go.
Yeah. 100%, man. And so like leading into how we've been sharing about sort of the power that an expanded vocabulary and one that we are proactively trying to expand and really hone. I have noticed that the people who are usually well read and really pay attention to the power of a word, right? Even if that might come across as annoying, when they point out, did you really need to say it that way? We could have said it that way. We might have delivery might have been a little bit better, right? Like it kind of feeds into the whole idea as something I refer to as like, the message and the messenger, right? Like sometimes we totally miss the message because we're too focused on the messenger or perhaps the formation of how it was said because it wasn't how we needed to receive it, right? So, I want to ask you what you think about the idea that like a limited vocabulary really leads to a limited reality. And I really see that as especially applicable to men. And the
Mhm.
reason for that is like I think back and I even have this conversation with men that I meet all over the world. And oftentimes what I find is that the vocabulary that we are kind of given as a standard skill set, if you will, really kind of only leads us down a couple paths. And often that's really around anger and rage,
Yeah,
right? And so what do we do about that, man? I totally open up the floor to you. What's your take on that?
yeah. Have you ever heard something called a word wheel?
Yes.
Oh, you've heard of it, so you're familiar with the word wheel and the emotions that go around on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that an incredible tool because, like you said, you brought up anger, right? Anger. We might not actually be angry. The word wheel will have anger, but then it'll have maybe five other subdivisions of anger to say, okay, frustrated, or am I annoyed? Or am I enraged? And that is a good tool to have words because if we don't have a feeling to go with the word, we can't really feel it. Like if we don't use the word euphoric, like,
Right.
oh, okay, just say the word euphoric, right? Anybody who's watching, you can try the word out, right? Euphoric. Oh, what does euphoria feel like? And contemplating that word will bring some sort of feeling. So I think the word wheel is a good tool to have on deck anytime if we're trying to expand our vocabulary or our feelings or our reality. A tool that was brought by that I came into with by Tony Robbins. Um, and we might not just be happy, we might actually be elated, or we might be in a state of joy, right? So happy is one word, but it can have more options to it. And it's imperative to have the words, to have the feeling, to precisely state where we are, where we feel, what we want. And yeah, to have an expanded vocabulary, something that's helped me is audiobooks. I've been on audiobooks for a very long time. And if I only ever listened to what's on the news or conversations around me, I wouldn't have the ideas that I get from specific audiobooks about abundance, about development, about thinking. And repeatedly having audiobooks in my ear while I'm driving, which is like a lot of time, certain words pop up again and again and again, and I find myself contemplating new words. Okay, what does it mean to be optimistic, or to think along the sides of positivity, or to think on the sides of prosperity? If we don't usually hear the word prosperity in our, in our surroundings sometimes. So I find the audiobooks, and not to just to listen to for 20 minutes, repeatedly, sometimes even the same book over and over and over again, just to like almost get it ingrained. Bob Proctor, he said he listened to Think and Grow Rich and read it over and over and over. That's like almost the only book that he read. So that's where I got that kind of tip from. So now, from the books of the Master Key System, or Think and Grow Rich, or any personal development book, these ideas and themes are so much circulating that I'm contemplating them more often, where we wouldn't run into them. We wouldn't run into them by conversation on CP24 on the news channel. We wouldn't spontaneously get these ideas from there. So I think expanding the vocabulary is what we want to do. And by means of audiobooks and exposing myself in that manner, even if it's a Tony Robbins video on YouTube, to be exposed to it can give us a word or an idea or a thought that we can correlate our feelings to better understand it, so we can vocalize it. Yeah, like you said, rage and anger are the primary things that only explain when you're frustrated, because that's when there's the most energy. That's when we have all the energy and it just comes out. But we can express higher elevated emotions that are light, that make us feel light on our feet, that make us feel like we're floating. And then we start to associate with those words a bit more. So that's one of the places where I got it from, and as well as the word wheel.
Yeah. No, those are great. The word wheel is actually a tool that my wife she uses with the kids regularly to help them to tap into that and really understand from a foundational level, at a young age, all the range that's available to you when you're expressing yourself, right? Because that just becomes habitual, right? Like if we actually step back and think about where our vocabulary is at, and when's the last time it really changed. When can we really say that? We might be working with some like 20-year-old software, you know what I mean? And we might really need that upgrade. And so, for me, one of the tools that really helped me to connect with, maybe I need to find some new words for this thing or that thing, is I would actually listen back to maybe some of the voice notes that I sent to people, or I might look at some of the messages that I've sent in the past and be like, that word seems to keep coming up. Maybe I need a synonym for that. I need something different. Right.
Right.
So, I found that if we actually look back at sort of a track record of the things we've done, and we do it intentionally, we got a lot of clues that we can really act on when it comes to that. And I would love to hear your take, and I'll share mine around this idea of, like, when people come to us and, we're talking about the power of the words and stuff. I've had some people who are incredibly skeptical, right? And it's like, how on earth, you're just going to speak it and it's just going to happen. It's just going to fall from the sky. No, I help them to understand, no, that's not what happens. But the bottom line is that we can actually impact our lived reality based on the words that we say. So something that I encourage people to do, and it kind of makes the hairs on their neck raise up a little bit, and then they're really like, you know what, that's true, is I say we almost have to be irritatingly specific in what we say and what we request from the universe, the intentions we put out there. Because I use this example of, there was this one day that I woke up and I'm like, you know what, I'm really at this place and I'm in this state right now where I want to make some money today, right? I hope that I can draw in some clients or whatever it happens to be. Just so happens that with that intention out there, I had a client who reached out and said, hey, I'd really love to have a session today. Can we do that? Awesome. So we did that. And then I sat back and I'm like, okay, now Josh, like, technically you got everything you asked for. You said you wanted to make some money today. Technically, if someone came and handed me a $1 bill, technically the universe delivered on what you asked for. So you can't really be upset if you kind of do get what you ask for, but you asked for it in a general way. And at the same time, we can't be upset when we don't get what we don't ask for, right? So how has this played out, like in a real life example for you, and with this realization around this, like what has that done for you?
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. To be specific, I want more money, and yeah, if you find a coin on the ground,
Yeah.
that is more money. Technically, yeah, it is there. That's what was asked for,
Yep.
and that was the broad vision. Something that impacted me with this was when I was living in Saskatchewan. It was like minus 40 degrees Celsius, and I just wanted to get out there. I wanted to get out, and this is actually when I went to my Tony Robbins event. So I went from minus 44 degrees, and then I went to Miami, which was 22 degrees. So I was in the midst of thawing out within my first day or two there. I was thawing out, and then I came across this guy in the street. I don't, just conversations. Miami, it's busy, it's bustling. This guy's wearing a long sleeve T-shirt, right? And he just walked by me. He wasn't talking to me or anything. He was just talking out loud, and he walked by me and he said, "Ooh, it's cold today." And considering where I came from, I almost I lost it. I couldn't believe it, right? And this was just a realization of perspective of
Mm.
where we are and what it means to be cold and what it means to be hot. And it's all relative, and it could be exact or it could be very vague. But for me, coming from minus 44 to plus 22 degrees, I was in heaven. I was thawing out.
Yeah.
I was feeling so good. And this guy comes out and he's like, "It's cold," and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, it is perspective. It is what we asked for. So now it's like, okay, no, I want to be in a climate where I can wear shorts and a t-shirt and soak in the sun, right? To be
Mm.
specific about maybe a climate that we want. I want to be able to wear sandals everywhere that I go. And to be specific about these things and what we ask for. And I think a key part about this thing is that it doesn't necessarily have to be this rigorous exercise of finding details for something, because the things that we actually want and the things that we are actually spinning on our mind, that we are gravitating towards, are already spinning on our mind, that we're already thinking about it a lot. And it's
Yeah.
almost to the point where it's effortless, that we don't have to really put aside time or make a workbook for it. No, the car that we want has been in our mind this whole time, or that kind of a job or that dynamic of a relationship has been there a lot. And
Yeah.
maybe just dive deeper into something that we already like or already have framework for, but maybe tweak some of the details or dive a bit deeper. But I do find that it is something that is already there. It's already
Mm.
there. We've already contemplated it maybe for hours on end.
Yeah.
And it's just to maybe be a bit more specific in it, dive a bit deeper in that visualization, maybe to make specific notes about it. But I think that it is something that is effortless, that it has already been contemplated. The format has been there, the foundation is already there. But like you said, yeah, not just I want a good relationship. No, I want a dynamic, passionate, uh, free flowing, loving, expressive relationship. And, just include some of those words, maybe from the word wheel, bring them in and describe your ideal romantic relationship that is to be coming.
Right. That's powerful, man. And so practical too. I think what we're talking about here is really rooted in things that no one needs a specialized toolkit to access. This is just a reminder of the things that are available to us. You know what I mean? And I think that that's especially what's really great about this conversation. And something that I've seen throughout your feed, and you even mentioned in today's conversation, is the impact of Bashar, right? And I've seen different clips and things like that. I've seen it on all different kind of platforms. And I personally haven't gone down the rabbit hole, but I do see that this is a very impactful individual. And when I do get the snippets, it's like, oh, there's really something in there. So I'd love to know from you, what has been especially impactful about his work, and why do you think so many people are really finding resonance with what he's sharing on, in this at this point in time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I share a lot of stuff on my social media about Bashar. So from what you've seen, and especially since you haven't gone down the rabbit hole, what are your impressions of his work and his material?
To me, it's the fact that he's willing to just be honest and unfiltered without needing to be arrogant. Like, I feel like that's kind of what the secret sauce is to what he's sharing. You know what I mean? And he just has this sort of essence. It's almost like without, not from necessarily an ego perspective, but it's a person who has presence when they're in a room. So you almost can't help yourself but to look in their direction and just feel that something impactful, whether through word or action, is going to happen when this person's in that room. So that's kind of my general impression so far, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, and it is something that is incredibly simple. He is unfiltered. Oh, this is what it's like. This is the solution. A to B in almost the shortest period of time. Period of
Mm,
time that doesn't take years of therapy or counseling, and it's actually practical in the moment. No,
right.
well, act on your highest passion. Well, what can you do in this moment? Yeah, you can't fly on a rocket ship to Mars right now, but you can do something now that is in your present moment or surroundings that is probably better than the alternative. And if there's an alternative that's slightly better, you act on that. And I find that because he's so practical and simple, um, it's easy to implement. And I think that also Tony Robbins says complexity and anything that is hard to wrap your head around or has a blueprint that you have to understand is the enemy to execution.
Mm.
So to be
So
able to
cool.
execute on something is to make it easy and to make it simple so you can act on it and implement it right away. So I'm a huge fan of how he makes things super simple. You don't need a whole new toolkit. You don't need to go down this route. You don't need to go anywhere, actually. All the tools are there. And it's just becoming aware of it, the decisions that we're making, the thought patterns that we have, uh, being mindful of any blockages that are there, and attuning to absolute truths. Absolute
Mm,
truths, you exist. You exist, and that's a hugely special thing, and that doesn't happen by chance. Um, and to discredit that is maybe a first oversight that we usually do is no, we exist. We are a source of creation. We have a life. It's not by chance. And creation has decided to put you here and now, and your wants and desires and direction and path are all valid. Not only are they valid, they are from the essence of creation itself. So anything that you want, that you are striving towards, that you want more of, is in line with the sources of creation, and it's a want from God, basically.
yeah.
So that's the validity that we have just by existing. And Bashar always talks about uh, being real with yourself and what do you like? What if you have a preference, that's your preference. And if it's morally and ethically within you, morally and ethically, then you can go out and you can do it. And everybody else has that freedom to allow everybody else to have that same freedom that you want. And I find from absorbing his teachings, and that's why I posted so much, is because it had such a strong impact on me, is that if I give myself that freedom and allow myself to have that that autonomy to be and do and feel as I please in this earth playground, then it makes it a lot easier that others shall have that same privilege to do and to feel and to be in
Mm,
their own playground as they see fit for what they find as their passion and their want or their desire and even not so. So everybody has that freedom to acknowledge or not to acknowledge, and that is our own space. But I find, yes, when I employ it, that's what I get within myself that freedom, that autonomy, that clear mindedness to act and to feel that it's not one big jigsaw puzzle. It's
yeah.
just well, be here now. Okay, what's the next best thing? Do I want to? Okay, I'll go eat an apple. Maybe that's the most exciting thing that I'm going to do, and that will up your vibration. And then the next thing, and that will up your vibration. and then to allow others to have that freedom to go eat macaroni and cheese. Well, I don't
Yeah.
have to agree with it or not, right? Right? It's what is exciting and appealing to that person, and to allow them. And I find that takes a little bit of the grip off, and just to let it go. We
Yeah.
are a piece of creation, and creation doesn't rush. Nature doesn't rush. The plants outside of your house where you're sitting right now are not rushing to go anywhere. They're not,
Mhm.
but look at the magnificence that they have become just by existing and going with the flow and taking what comes its way, whichever rainfall, whatever's in the soil, and whatever other living creatures want to come by and hang around and partake in this. It is what it is, and they grow. And I think we are just like those trees and plants. We take it as it comes and adopt the flow of being easy with things and trying not to force. Um, Takes a lot of weight off our shoulders.
Yeah, that's a wonderful message. And, I think all of this really, really has helped me personally. And I won't speak for you, but it seems like it. I find that the more I've tapped into this, right, the more it helps me to actually be present in what I'm doing and allow me to really consider things that are in the present and what I'm looking towards in the future, right? It allows me to really understand and connect with purpose. And am I actually living in alignment with my purpose, right? Because now we have the expanded vocabulary. Now we have some more of the toolkit, right? And the reminders of how many things are actually within us, right? We have these multiple check-in points about how well am I treating myself and therefore what's being returned to me in my environment, right? And I think that's something that a lot of us, especially men, we lead with is, oh, what legacy am I leaving behind? Right. And oftentimes, when that conversation comes up, I kind of, jump in there and I'm like, well, what legacy are you living and building? Right. Versus just thinking about the final endpoint, because at that point, you have no more say. It's kind of just, it
Yeah,
ends there. Right. And I find that the more we tap into connecting with ourselves and what are we truly feeling within us, the more we're able to actually call a flag on our own play in terms of the
mhm.
blueprint that we're following to get to where it is that we think we're trying to go with the legacy of our life, right? So, for you, I'm curious, what legacy are you living and building in real time? And I ask you this because of a lot of the men that I've had exposure to, I feel like you really do show up in a way that's supporting a very intentional creation in real time of the legacy that is going to be yours.
Yeah. And the only time that we have is right now, because the past has already passed, and it's behind us. It's in the rearview mirror. The future, we don't know really. I mean, 5 minutes from now, after we do this, we have an idea of what we're gonna do, but we don't really know how it's gonna
Yeah.
play out, the moods that we're gonna have. All we really have is right now, which does influence the future, and it can reshape the past. The more that we are present is the more that we take control over those past and future hypothetical things, and the memories that are in the past, is to be present. And I do appreciate you bringing that up. And it takes a almost as a bird, the saying, birds that flock together. um you
Feather,
know
yeah.
yeah, birds of a feather. Yeah, that is it. And I think that's why we're here. I think this is why we gel so well, is to be present and to be mindful um of what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're saying. Yes, we can have an intention, but as long as we're present and realizing that we can impact this time space dimension, um, by being present, having that awareness of what's going on, and then consciously bringing forth more positivity, bringing forth an awareness, bringing forth our power again consciously, is the main thing that I think, the main power that all of us can do in any given moment. As for any kind of a legacy, I maybe other people might have better insight into that, but I think, as you're playing the game, you're just focused on playing the game as best as you can, um, using your avatar in whatever better way that you can. And I think everybody will have a different perspective on a legacy, right? I think both of us can go watch a movie and have a different interpretation of what that movie message and how it hit us. But I do think that we all can elevate. We all can become more happy. We can become more of ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
if we want to grow in a certain direction, and we want to have more things around us, more toys, more physical, um, you know, abilities, we can have a greater sense of appreciation, whatever way we want to grow. And I think that every human being um, should have that uh, in their mind that they can grow in whichever way. And that is actually our purpose. You want to have more guests, more insightful conversations on your podcast. You want to have more views and more impact and more people telling you that you did a good job, you impacted my life. And that is the benefit of more. I think we all
Mm.
want more in some way, just like how a tree is growing and it will grow more leaves. That is its purpose. I think all of us are our own tree and we will sprout the flowers, the fruits, the vegetables, whatever products, as long as we are becoming more of ourselves naturally. So I think, yeah, any legacy that takes of itself is happening now in this present moment. And just to become aware of that, as we talked about in the beginning, just to breathe and say, oh, at least I have control over something. At least I have
Yeah.
control over something that's going on in this matrix, right? Okay, so let me
Yeah.
start there. That is like maybe like square one that we can start off with, and becoming aware and then consciously influencing, consciously going in a direction, consciously choosing what to eat, how to speak to somebody, speak to them in the tone of a child and reflect positive, kind words. Maybe if we could see our words as vibrations, we might
Mm.
have a better insight to what these words are actually doing. Because yes, there is words, there is force coming from our mouth, and the better state that we're in, the better we can speak. We can speak in a better tone. The better we can handle conflict, the better we can bring up something that is bothering us to our boss, our partner, our family members. Anything can be spoken about as long as it's in the right tone. But I do appreciate all the messages that you bring about being present, because there's no other time. There's no other time. We can predict, we can think about what tomorrow looks like, but we actually don't. We don't
Nope.
really know how that's going to play out.
Yeah, 100%, man. I appreciate that. I've gotten so many amazing insights from you through this conversation, and I know that's just the beginning. For those who are perhaps new to you, this is their first experience. I'm sure they're going to definitely resonate with a whole bunch and probably have a lot of questions. So, with that, I would love, just as we wrap here, for you to share, what are your services and offerings out to the world, and how can people connect with you? Why might they really want to benefit from certain types of offerings that you do bring? Just to help them connect the dots a little bit, right? I think we're really here trying to be useful and help people to understand why they might benefit from some of the things that we're saying, or maybe that we do offer. So take it away, man. Please do openly share here how people can also connect with you and the best way to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And by the biggest reach nowadays is probably social media. So I would say probably either Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, or even TikTok. I think I'm on all these platforms. I almost lose track of it. But
Yeah.
I am out there on those platforms. It is a way to get out the message, as in following a lot of these mentors that I have absorbed a lot of my knowledge from, Tony Robbins, is to just put yourself out there, put myself out there, share what I've learned, and because at some point I was the person watching these videos and not really understanding, but knowing that it can get me somewhere. And this is something that resonates. I might have not have connected the dots. My word wheel probably wasn't fully expanded at that time, and the words were kind of
Yeah.
flying over my head. And I was like, I don't know what he's saying, but like I want some more of this, right? So this is what I try to do online, is to bring about these ideas and topics that do not get much play in mainstream conversations or media, but they are a vital impact in our existence, and possibly the only things that should be considered in our day-to-day life. And it's almost like a paradox, right?
Right.
I don't get shunned for talking about the invisible, right? But it's a big part of our reality. Thinking and observing our thoughts, our awareness it's a big part of it, right? We are here, we exist, we have a mind, so we try to use it as best as we can, and to expand our consciousness, right? We can always elevate, we can always expand. It is our birthright to be here and to grow. It is our that's the only reason why we're here. And to take advantage of that is kind of the content that should be on my channel in some way, shape, or form. Sharing anything that I've learned, and hopefully maybe something clicks. Oh, what is that word wheel thing this person was talking about? Who's this Tony guy? Who's this Tony guy?
Yeah.
Oh, he does live events, and hopefully it may not necessarily lead to more of my content. It may not lead to that, but it may lead in the right direction that is suitable for that person.
Got you. Thank you for that. And I definitely encourage everyone to check out Darren. He does have presence all over. I do see that, and I do see the intention behind all the work that you put out. Like, I really don't get this vibe of, oh, there's a requirement that I need to put something out today. What can I string together? You really do that with intention. So, bro, thank you for today's conversation. High impact for me, and I'm sure for our viewers, and I can't wait for them to experience this. So, with eternal gratitude to you, man, thank you for today.
Yes, no, Josh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you and all that you do as well, and having this as a platform, and that the vision that you see coming true. Keep it up. You're doing awesome work yourself, and this didn't happen by chance. And I do appreciate your time. And man, breathe some of that air in.
Thank you so much. And for everyone who's tuned in and supported us, thank you all so much. Please do let us know in the comments what you learned and what you loved about this conversation. So, Darren, until next time, bro, you take care and keep doing your thing, man. It's very inspiring. I appreciate you. Much love.
Thank you.